They thought it was over. They looked at you and assumed the silence meant defeat. The closed doors, final. The unanswered prayers, forgotten. The waiting season, a waste. But what they didn't know, what even you may have doubted, is that God had a date circled on the calendar of heaven. And that date is the end of June 2025. This isn't just another month. It's not a coincidence. It's not just another checkpoint in time. No, this is divine strategy. A heavenly timeline is unfolding, and your story has a turning point written in it, not by chance, but by design. And God sent this message for the weary, for the almost broken, for the one hanging on by a whisper of hope. It's all planned for the end of June. Let that settle deep in your spirit, because what looks like delay is often preparation. What feels like silence is often God setting the stage. What appears to be the end is actually the beginning of something greater. And that's what this month represents. A divine turnaround that's not just possible, it's promised. Think back to the moments when you almost gave up. When you told yourself, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe the dream wasn't from God after all. But what if I told you that every disappointment, every detour, every painful lesson was leading to this moment? That every tear was a seed. That every prayer was a brick in the foundation for what's about to rise. Let me remind you, God doesn't forget. He doesn't abandon. He doesn't change his mind about what he promised you in the dark. He's not scrambling for solutions. He's not improvising. He's executing a plan so precise, so intentional, that even the parts that hurt, even the ones that made no sense, will be seen for what they truly were, essential. This is the moment where your faith gets reignited, not because of what you see, but because of what God said. And he said, it's all planned for the end of June 2025. What if the waiting wasn't punishment, but preparation? What if the silence you've been enduring wasn't the absence of God, but the very proof that he's working behind the scenes in ways you can't see yet? You see, we often confuse divine timing with delay. We assume that if it hasn't happened yet, it must not be happening at all. But that's the deception of impatience. That's the lie whispered into your ear by fear and fatigue. The truth is, when God says something is planned, he means it's on schedule, even when it doesn't look that way to you. There's something powerful about understanding the difference between delay and divine strategy. When God orchestrates your life, he doesn't rush. He's not working on your clock, he's working on his plan. And his plan has layers, details, and depths you can't comprehend right now. You might be praying for open doors, but God is still laying the foundation behind the wall. You might be begging for movement, but he's anchoring your faith deeper so you don't collapse when the weight of the blessing comes. Because yes, blessings have weight. And God will never give you something prematurely that your character can't carry. Sometimes, the most spiritual thing God can do is make you wait. Because it's in the waiting that your faith grows. It's in the silence that your ears become sharper. It's in the stillness that your trust is stretched. And that's where most people give up. Not because God failed, but because they misinterpreted the delay. They assumed the absence of noise meant the absence of purpose. But when you're walking with God, quiet seasons are often the ones where the deepest construction is happening in your life. Let's be honest, delay hurts. It makes you question. It makes you doubt what you once believed so boldly. It makes you wonder if you missed God entirely. But just because you don't feel movement doesn't mean there isn't movement. There are things being aligned right now, connections, opportunities, hearts, and doors that will make sense later. There are conversations you haven't heard yet, contracts you haven't seen, blessings you haven't touched, but God has. He sees it all, and he's not stalling, he's preparing. And this is why June matters. This is why he whispered to your spirit, it's all planned for the end of June 2025. Because he knew the delay would test you. He knew you'd grow weary. He knew you'd need a word to hold on to so you don't give up before the promise appears. So he spoke it in advance, not to tease you, but to anchor you, to help you endure the moments when your emotions scream, it's over, while your spirit whispers, hold on, it's close. Don't waste the delay by complaining. Don't miss the miracle, because it didn't come wrapped in your expected timeline. The strategy of heaven is always higher than human understanding. The delay is where God sharpens your discernment. The delay is where pride is stripped. humility is born, and endurance is built. It's where warriors are made, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. So no, you are not forgotten, you are not being punished, you are not behind, you are right on time with God's design. He's not late, he's strategic, and his strategy is perfect. What felt like a pause was really a plan, and that plan is set to unfold by the end of June 2025. Keep holding on. You're not being delayed, you're being developed. You didn't fail, you didn't miss it. That door that slammed in your face wasn't meant to be opened, at least not then, and maybe not ever. But here's the truth that shifts everything. It wasn't a setback, it was the setup. That rejection you faced, that opportunity you thought you lost, that moment you felt the floor drop out from beneath you, it was all part of a bigger alignment, one that was always meant to redirect you, not destroy you. Because God doesn't close doors to break you, he closes them to build you. There are moments when life will hand you a no, so loud it echoes through your soul. And in those moments you might be tempted to believe that the closed door is a sign of disqualification, that somehow you weren't good enough, that maybe you misheard God, that perhaps the dream was too big for someone like you. But that's a lie. The enemy wants you to think rejection is the end, when it's really just the redirection of a loving Father who sees the road ahead more clearly than you ever could. God will block what isn't part of his plan no matter how much you begged for it. Sometimes the answer is no, not because he doesn't want to bless you, but because what you're asking for isn't big enough, isn't ready yet, or simply isn't right. That business you tried to start, that didn't take off, that relationship that didn't work out, that job that slipped through your fingers. What if every one of those moments was heaven saying, I've got something better? What if every closed door was actually a divine shield? Here's where it gets personal. Sometimes the setup doesn't look holy, it looks humiliating. You get left out, passed over, underestimated, and forgotten. But what feels like being overlooked is often God pulling you into a season of hidden preparation. He hides those he plans to use, he shields those he's anointed until the right moment comes. And sometimes the only way to get you to the right place is to block the wrong one. That's not punishment, that's precision. God is strategic, not sentimental. He's not interested in giving you what you want. He's committed to giving you what will grow you. And that means he's going to close some doors even if they look like dreams. Because he sees the version of you that will walk into June 2025 fully prepared. And that version of you needed to face the rejection. That version needed to lose what you thought you couldn't live without. That version needed the door to slam so you would stop knocking on the wrong future and start trusting the one who holds the keys to the right one. So don't mourn what didn't open. Don't idolize what left. You didn't lose the best, you lost the counterfeit. You didn't get left behind, you got placed ahead. It just didn't look like it at the time. Every closed door was heaven's hand steering you back into alignment. And now you're approaching the moment where it all makes sense. The setup is nearly complete. The timing is divine, and the word God speaks over your life is this: it's all planned for the end of June 2025. That moment is coming where everything clicks. Where the pain, the confusion, the disappointment, it all reveals its purpose. And when it does, you be glad that door never opened. You be thankful for the rejection. Because what God is about to open for you will make every previous no feel like mercy in disguise. Hold on. The setup is almost over. The release is near. Heaven doesn't operate on human time. God doesn't make guesses. He doesn't leave your destiny hanging in the balance, hoping circumstances will align. He plans with precision. Before you ever faced the problem, he already scheduled the solution. Before you cried the first tear, he already prepared the breakthrough. And there's something sacred about understanding that your life isn't random. It's not chaos. It's not a series of unfortunate events. No, there's a divine timeline. And on that timeline, there's a date circled, marked, declared by the mouth of God himself. The end of June 2025. You didn't miss your moment. You're not late. You're not behind schedule. You're not stuck. You're moving exactly according to the rhythm of God's calendar. While you've been wrestling with impatience, while you've been wondering if he forgot, heaven has been aligning people, places, and events to meet you at a specific intersection in time, and when that moment arrives, everything will shift at once. What's been stagnant will flow. What's been locked will open. What's been unclear will come into focus. Because God doesn't just work in seasons, He works in divine appointments. Sometimes we think God is slow because we don't understand His timing, but God is never late. He is exact. His timing is always tied to purpose. And when He says now, things move fast. All the waiting, all the delay, all the unseen movement suddenly comes into view. And it won't be something you have to force. You won't have to fight for it, fake it, or beg for it. It will come to you because it's been appointed to find you. This is what happens when God marks a moment in your life. Think about this. If God marked the end of June as the turning point, then nothing you've experienced up to now has been wasted. Not the delay, not the detour, not the heartbreak. It was all building momentum toward this divine collision. God doesn't plan dates just to give you hope. He plans dates to fulfill prophecy. When He says, I've planned it, it means the day is already sealed. It means the outcome has already been declared. And it means the enemy can't stop it. No attack, no resistance, no delay tactic from hell can cancel what heaven has already scheduled. That's why you've felt the pressure increase. That's why the warfare has been intense. That's why the silence has been heavy. Because the closer you get to your divine appointment, the more the enemy tries to convince you nothing is happening. But the enemy doesn't attack empty places. He only fights futures that are full of purpose. So if you've been under fire lately, it's not because you're lost. It's because you're close. You're approaching the fulfillment of a promise that was written long before the pain ever touched your life. This isn't just another month for you. This isn't just another season. This is fulfillment. This is manifestation. This is the moment when prayers meet provision. And it's been timed with the accuracy of heaven. God didn't guess when your story would shift. He planned it. He didn't estimate when your breakthrough would come. He scheduled it. The end of June isn't symbolic. It's specific. So don't let the delay discourage you. Don't let the silence fool you. The reason it hasn't happened yet is because God is waiting for the exact moment. And when that moment comes, everything will fall into place. Suddenly, completely, and undeniably, because when God plans something, it can't be stopped. Your moment is not on the way, it's arriving. You're walking toward what's already been written. And when you step into the end of June 2025, you'll step into something that only God could have prepared. No one wants the pain. No one prays for the crushing. But what if the very thing you've been asking God to take away is the thing He's been using to build you? What if the storm wasn't designed to break you but to form you? You've cried, questioned, even begged for relief. But heaven hasn't been silent out of neglect. God's been watching over every step, every tear, every sleepless night, not with indifference but with purpose, because He never allows pain without purpose. If He permitted it, He planned to use it. And the pain you've endured wasn't punishment. It was preparation. It's easy to believe in the promise when everything's working. But true faith is built in the wilderness, in the in-between, in the crushing where nothing makes sense, where prayers seem unanswered, where breakthrough feels like a myth. That's where God digs deep. That's where He stretches what you thought couldn't stretch. That's where your spiritual muscles are torn, not to destroy them, but to rebuild them stronger. The season you've called suffering, God called strengthening, because He knew what was coming. He knew what June 2025 would demand of you. So He had to prepare you before He promoted you. You can't carry weight you haven't been conditioned for. You can't hold power you haven't been broken for. And that's why you walked through that valley. That's why the betrayal happened. That's why the business failed. That's why the door closed, the relationship ended, the opportunity vanished. It wasn't because God was angry. It was because He was preparing you to walk through the doors that wouldn't close, the ones He designed just for you. And to walk through those, you needed to be forged in the fire, not to punish you, but to prove you. Pain has a way of revealing what comfort hides. It shows you who's real. It shows you what's inside. It exposes what needs to be healed, surrendered, released. And sometimes, God lets you feel the full weight of emptiness. Not because He enjoys watching you suffer, but because He's trying to fill you with something deeper, something unshakable. You've been asking for strength, but strength is born in struggle. You've been asking for wisdom, but wisdom grows through wounds. And all of this has been leading somewhere. Somewhere specific, somewhere sacred, somewhere called the end of June 2025. You won't step into that moment weak. You won't show up fragile. When the appointed time comes, you'll walk into it with scars that have stories, eyes that see deeper, and a heart that trusts more fully. Because you've been prepared, you've been trained. The pain didn't kill your purpose, it revealed it. Every moment you thought was pointless was packed with divine intention. Heaven wastes nothing, not even your suffering. And maybe right now you still don't see it. Maybe you're still carrying the weight of what was lost. But hear this, the healing will match the depth of the wound. The restoration will outweigh the loss. God isn't just going to fix what was broken. He's going to rebuild it better than it was. And when he does, you'll understand why the pain had to come first. You'll see that the breaking was the birthing, that the crushing was the calling, that the pain was the price for the oil your life is now dripping with. So don't despise the process. Don't curse the journey. What you called pain, God calls preparation. What you thought would ruin you, God used to refine you. And now, as the days inch toward June's end, the season of purpose is beginning. The pain didn't disqualify you, it certified you. You're not broken, you're built. You're not behind, you're becoming. And when the end of June arrives, the version of you that walks through that divine door will know. The pain was worth it, every part of it. Time has a way of making us question what we were once so sure of. When a promise lingers, when a word from God seems buried under months or years of silence, it's easy to wonder if we heard wrong. Maybe it was our imagination. Maybe we read too much into it. Maybe God changed his mind. But hear this with your whole heart. God never forgets what he speaks. What he promised you is still alive. It hasn't expired. It hasn't faded. It hasn't been overridden by time or circumstance. The promise still stands. You might not feel it anymore. You might not talk about it the way you used to. In fact, maybe you buried it because hope started to hurt. You stopped dreaming because the delay was too painful. But God doesn't operate on human emotion or earthly calendars. What he spoke over your life didn't come with an expiration date. His promises are not based on momentum. They're based on his nature. And his nature is faithful. If he said it, he meant it. If he started it, he will finish it. If he planted it, he will bring it to harvest. Some of the most powerful moves of God come after the longest silences. Abraham waited decades for a son. David was anointed as king while still tending sheep, then waited years to take the throne. Joseph dreamed of greatness, only to be thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and forgotten in prison. But in each of those stories, delay did not mean denial. It meant development. It meant that the promise was maturing beneath the surface, even when nothing on the outside showed evidence. And maybe that's where you are right now, caught between what God said and what life looks like. The contradiction is loud, the disappointment is real, but even when you let go, God holds on. Even when your faith slips, his plan doesn't. That dream you stopped believing in, it's still breathing. That vision you thought was too far gone, it's still moving. Heaven doesn't cancel promises because of your doubts. It doesn't revoke destiny because of delays. God's word is not fragile, it's unshakable. When God said, it's all planned for the end of June 2025, it wasn't an empty phrase. It was a divine reminder that the promise you thought had passed you by is still waiting at the appointed place. There is a destination on your journey where what you believed for will meet what God prepared, and it's closer than you think. This isn't just another year passing. This is the culmination of everything that's been building in silence. The stretching, the waiting, the quiet nights when you wondered if God still remembered you. All of it is leading to fulfillment. You've matured, you've grown, you've learned to trust without seeing, and now you're almost there. God didn't forget. He didn't overlook you. He's not scrambling for a backup plan. He's not responding. He's orchestrating. And when his timing aligns with your preparation, everything changes suddenly, swiftly, supernaturally, because that's how God moves when it's time. So let your spirit rise again. Let hope breathe again. Dust off the promises you packed away. The enemy would love for you to believe that it's over, that it's too late. But it's not. The promise still stands and the date has been marked. When you step into the final days of June 2025, you're not just stepping into a new month. You're stepping into a moment that was always meant for you, not because you earned it, but because he spoke it. And what he speaks, he fulfills. Every single time. Faith isn't built on feelings, it's built on what God said. There are moments when everything around you looks opposite to the promise, when your circumstances don't reflect your calling, when the silence screams louder than your prayers. That's where real faith is tested, not when the path is clear, but when it's clouded, not when doors open, but when they remain shut. And still, you trust, still, you believe. Because faith doesn't need confirmation to stand, it just needs a word. And God gave you one. It's all planned for the end of June 2025. Faith is the refusal to let what you see cancel what God said. It's the boldness to stand in the middle of contradiction and declare, I still believe. You may not feel it. You may not see signs. But God never asked you to walk by sight. He said walk by faith. He said trust me when it doesn't make sense. He said hold on to the promise even when it looks impossible. Because what's impossible with man is always possible with God. Sometimes faith means showing up when you feel nothing, praying when the heavens seem closed, believing when every voice around you says it's over. That's not weakness, that's warfare. That's what separates spectators from warriors. And right now, God is raising up a generation of believers who won't be moved by what they see, but by what they know. And what you know is this: God gave you a word, and that word holds more weight than any delay, any disappointment, or any discouragement. The enemy's goal isn't to steal your destiny, it's to shake your confidence in God's voice. If he can get you to doubt what God said, he can get you to walk away from what was already yours. That's why the pressure has increased. That's why your emotions have been all over the place. Because you're standing on the edge of fulfillment, and the last thing the enemy wants is for you to cross over in faith. But here's the truth. If God said it's planned for the end of June 2025, then your only job is to believe it. Not understand it, not explain it, just believe. You don't have to know how, you don't have to know when, you don't have to see evidence, you only need to know who said it. And when God speaks, it's already settled in heaven. Heaven doesn't issue empty words, heaven doesn't throw out random dates. If he said it's all planned, then there's a divine appointment with your name on it, and no force of darkness can cancel what God has written. This is the season to fight for your faith, to protect the word you carry, to speak it even when it sounds crazy. There will be moments when you feel foolish for holding on, moments when you want to retreat, to shrink, to settle, but don't. This is your moment to stand, to declare what God said, until your soul believes it again. Say it until the atmosphere shifts. Say it until doubt loses its grip. Say it until your heart comes back alive. Faith is the bridge between your now and your next. It's the currency of heaven, and without it, it's impossible to please God. But with it, mountains move, chains break, doors open. What looks dead comes back to life. And that's what this moment is all about. Resurrecting your belief in the word God gave you, not because of what's happening around you, but because of what's already been decreed above you. So don't look for signs, don't wait for perfect timing, just trust what he said. The promise hasn't changed, the plan hasn't shifted, and the word still stands. It's all planned for the end of June 2025. That's your anchor, that's your confidence, that's your victory. Faith says it's already done. Now walk like it, speak like it, praise like it. Because the breakthrough is not just coming, it's scheduled.